The fantasy world of Monscone is home to a wide array of different organisms. Among them, a few stand out as icons. Monsconian icons, as they're called, are defined as organisms that are magical or quasi-magical, that are extremely recognizable, magically interesting, and/or serve as keystone species. All Monsconian icons were among the first organisms ever discovered and studied on early expeditions to Monscone. Today, we'll take a brief look at each Monsconian icon. Living primarily in the forest of Niaviala, with some smaller populations in the mountains and prairies, the unicorns are some of the largest fully terrestrial animals of Monscone. They have 10 legs, big bushy tails, and are covered in fur. They feed mostly on low-growing plants, though sometimes supplement their diets with small animals and carrion. They grab and grind up their food using strong motile hairs on the undersides of their heads. Males and females are similar in size, but males have darker heads and longer, brighter horns. Males use these horns and their incorporated magic to fight for breeding rights during the ritualistic breeding season that happens every 7 years after the first snow. Unicorns reach sexual maturity at 4 years in females and 5 years in males, and live up to 70 years. Once a unicorn reaches maturity, it establishes its own territory in the forest, and after establishing its territory, it can form a mutualistic relationship with a breeding pair of unicorn jays, who act as tick birds for the unicorn. Interestingly, unicorns have no eyes, ears, or nose, yet navigate their environment completely fine and communicate with bellows and body language. The deserted, one of the most puzzling organisms of Monscone, have a cosmopolitan distribution, a range aided by the interconnected Monsconian world cave system. The deserted take refuge in the caves during the day and emerge each night to hunt prey. They hunt using a scent that smells like whatever food they take the appearance of. The alluring scents they produce are essentially hypnotic, and unless their selected prey animal is particularly strong, it will go towards the deserted even if it recognizes the danger. The deserted take on the appearance of a wide array of foods, usually desserts as their name suggests. Though this was originally thought to be a form of mimicry, an idea which itself had problems, after the capture and study of some small individuals, it became evident that they are seemingly made out of whatever food they look like. The deserted don't just look like food, apparently they literally are. This is extremely strange, even for Monsconian magical life. Multiple species of monopod can be found on Monscone, including the Krakens monopod, the Krakens monopod, and the most abundant and iconic species, the Monsconian. As their name suggests, these organisms have only one leg and one large foot they use to hop around on. If a monopod so chooses, it can dig its foot into the ground and produce roots from the foot to root itself in the ground. It's not fully understood why they do this, but it's believed it's used simply to access extra nutrients, as monopods do still eat. They feed mostly on berries, fallen fruits, and nuts, seeds, and small arthropods. Monopods tend to forage at dawn and dusk in groups between 15 and 30 individuals. Monopods are in fact extremely social creatures, and if one chooses to root in the ground, they all stick around until it uproots itself, and may even join it in rooting. Monopods are mostly quiet, but make rapid high-pitched chirps that communicate movement and the presence of other animals. During the spring, a male and female will chase each other around in courtship, and mate for life. They usually produce a clutch of 2 to 3 eggs each year, and the young are raised communally by the entire group. They stay with their parents until they leave around 2 years old and form their own groups. They usually live to be around 18 years old. Ciders are massive arachnids with 12 eyes on their heads and 8 more on their abdomens, giving them a very large field of vision. Their eyes are also bioluminescent, which not only helps them see better at night, but also lures in confused nocturnal prey. Ciders are extremely aggressive and will eat anything they can catch, though they'll also eat nuts and fruits. They're active primarily at night and live in the forest and northern prairies of Niaviala, though some individuals live in the caves around Niaviala and Krakens as well. All ciders have teal patterns on their abdomens, which are unique in every individual. Males' patterns are slightly brighter than females, and males are smaller. During their breeding display, they raise their abdomens into the air and flash the lights in their rear eyes. After breeding, up to 20 eggs are laid in a cluster and are protected by the female until they hatch. Though young ciders fall prey to a variety of organisms, Adults usually don't have any natural predators, and can live to be 58 years old in females and 28 years old in males. The twisted pines are one of the dominant plants constructing the Ambulop and Harakirangan forest. There are multiple species of twisted pine, but they all have multiple curved and twisted trunks that end in a cluster of leaves. Depending on the species, they can grow anywhere between 4 and 19 meters tall. Twisted pines provide habitat for a countless number of arthropods, birds, and other arboreal creatures. Like other low-flowering plants, twisted pines produce flowers coming from the undersides of their leaves. The flowers bloom in the early summer and, if pollinated, produce pine fruits in early fall. These fruits are both extremely fleshy and full of seeds, feeding a vast array of animals in the forest. Segment trees, like the twisted pine, are some of the dominant plant species of the Ambulop and Harakirangan forest, though they can be found in Kranstiana as well. All segment trees have a segmented photosynthetic mass sitting atop their branches. In most species, it is green in the spring and summer, changes to red, yellow, or orange in the fall, and is white in the winter. In the Kranstian species, however, the mass is always red or magenta. Depending on the species, they can grow between 8 and 15 meters tall. Unlike the twisted pine, the segment trees are high-flowering plants, and their flowers emerge from the tops of their photosynthetic structure. After blooming in the middle of spring, assuming the flowers are pollinated, segment fruits are produced in the late summer. Like the twisted pine, the habitat and food the segment trees provides is crucial for the survival of various forest creatures. The twisted fungus can be found all across Monscone except for in the mountains and the Krakens desert. They have the highest species and population density in the Ambulop, Kranstian, and Harakirangan forest. Quite a few species can also be found in the caves. The twisted fungus are part of a clade of Monsconian flora called the flowering fungus, and like all species of flowering fungus, they primarily reproduce by releasing spores, but can produce flowers and small nuts under extreme environmental pressure. Their stems, as the name suggests, are twisted and curved, much like the twisted pine, and each species has its own unique pattern. The caps of twisted fungus can be shaped various ways, but tend to be ovoid or flat. They usually grow between 1 and 4 meters in height. Shield flowers can be found across all of Monscone, with especially high species and population density in the Ambulop prairie. They're named for their leaves, which hug and shield the flower. Shield flowers are an extremely diverse group of plants, and one of the few clades with a definitive species present on the pupal whitelands. Some species are quite small, while others can grow very tall. Purple grays, species of purple plants part of a clade of grass-like plants called grays, can be found across Ambulopa, Harakirangan, Kranstiana, and parts of Krakens, with the largest species and population density on Kranstiana. Like all grazes, they produce hair-like flowers and oat-like seeds and go through 3 reproductive cycles during one Monsconian year. Though the green grazes on Monscone were also discovered early on, they aren't considered icons because the purple grazes caught the attention of the first researchers and therefore took study priority. The dragons of Monscone are levitating serpentine creatures who generally have 4 flaps on their heads and small hairs going down their bodies. The heads of dragons have a single eye which also serves as a mouth from which strange tentacle-like mouthparts can emerge. There are many species of dragon found across Monscone in its mountains, shrublands, and forest. There's also a species that lives on the pupal whitelands. Dragons can be as small as chickens or larger than elephants, depending on where they live, with mountain species being the largest, and forest species of Fahafahana and Harakirangan being the smallest. Most non-mountain dragon species are predatory animals that will eat anything that doesn't pose a threat to them, though some species are specialists in certain prey. They usually fall towards the top of the food web, though still fall prey to apex predators. Mountain dragons, in contrast, are the apex predators in their environment, and will eat anything large enough to catch their attention. Most dragons are territorial and solitary outside of their spring breeding season. Though breeding rituals vary, as dragons are hermaphrodites, it usually involves both individuals performing aerial displays and shaking their facial flaps and tails around. Oftentimes, their flaps and tails develop different colors and patterns in the spring. These rituals can last hours and even days until the 2 individuals either decide to breed or to go their separate ways. After breeding, they lay their eggs in a shared nest and care for their young until they mature. In forest species, young dragons mature after a year and a half, and in mountain species, it takes 8 years. Forest dragons usually live between 25 and 35 years, and mountain dragons usually live to be 70 years old. There have been instances, however, where a mountain dragon has been discovered to be hundreds of years old. Of all of the Monsconian dragons, the most iconic are the red forest dragon and the giant dream snatcher. The Anser waterlily, named for their appearance similar to the heads of anseriform birds, are endemic to the Great Monsconian Swamp. They tend to have 1 or 2 leaves, though can have more, and their flowers are usually pink, though there is some color variation within the species. They can grow quite tall, and their large fleshy stems and leaves are a delicacy for various herbivorous swamp animals. The Dronesflies are aerial mesopredators in the Monsconian Swamp. They're believed to be large odonodon insects due to their environment, life cycle, and body plan similar to dragonflies and damselflies. Like other odonodons, the eggs are laid in or near water, and the nymphs are ravenous aquatic predators. Dronesflies breed once a year in the spring, and the nymphs grow through the summer. They hunker down through the winter and leave the water as adults in the spring. Some adults do survive through the winter, but most Dronesflies only live for a year. There are multiple species of Dronesfly, but the most iconic is the scarlet Dronesfly. The Clouds are fluffy, levitating grazers that live in the ambulate prairie. They float when escaping predators and when traveling, but can produce 4 legs from below them when grazing. They live in large herds of up to around 200 to 500 individuals. The herds are loud, constantly producing high-pitched belting sounds. In the summer, after breeding, Cloud calves are born and can be seen playfully flying around the herd as the adults graze. They mature in just a few months, by the beginning of winter, and can live for about 30 years. Most Clouds, however, will be preyed upon by the various predators of the prairie before they grow old. The Niaviala are serpentine cave-dwelling creatures believed to be related to dragons. There are multiple species of Niaviala living all throughout the Monsconian world cave. All species are calculated ambush predators, waiting in the ceilings and walls of caves and grabbing anything small enough that walks by. Though most species of Niaviala are solitary, there has been instances in which a species has been seen living in large, dangerous, and deadly clusters. Though what we see of the Niaviala is generally large, the true size of them is unknown. In fact, quite a lot surrounding the Niaviala is unknown, due to their habitat, sessile lifestyle, and how dangerous they are. The most iconic and well-understood species of Niaviala is the cave warden. The sea serpents of Monscone are large serpentine aquatic carnivores. Some species are filter feeders, but most are active predators, hunting a wide array of aquatic prey. They range in size from the size of a medium-sized shark to the size of large whales. Various species can be found throughout the Sclerdia Sea, the water around the Monsconian Islands. A few species can also be found living in Monscone's major rivers. The sociality of sea serpents varies greatly between species, with some being aggressive and territorial, and others being highly social. Life history also varies, with some species living hundreds of years and others living a decade or two. All sea serpents, however, perform live birth. Though sea serpents as a whole are considered icons, the most iconic individual species are the bloodtail and the giant kraken killer. Monsconian krakens are soft-bodied swimming aquatic creatures similar to cephalopods. They have 2 arms, which are equipped with hooks or feathery filaments in some species. Most species have 2 eyes, though some have none. They prey on various aquatic species, but mostly fish and smaller krakens, though some krakens are filter feeders. Like sea serpents, krakens can be found in the waters throughout Monscone, though are absent from the rivers. Also, like the sea serpents, krakens have a large diversity of life histories, lifestyles, and social behaviors depending on the species. All species of kraken, however, do lay eggs. Though krakens as a whole are considered icons, the most iconic species are the common spotted kraken and the giant kraken. The final creature considered a Monsconian icon is the airhog. Airhogs are native to Krakens, with some living in the northern desert and others living in the southern savanna. These animals have large fluffy wings which they use to fly, primarily for escaping predators, traveling long distances, or roosting, but ultimately they prefer to walk on their long, hooved legs. Airhogs are omnivores, feeding on fruits and fleshy plants, while also hunting various smaller animals, chiefly lizards, snakes, and small dragons, kicking them to death with their powerful feet. Their large ears give them a powerful sense of hearing, and though they have no eyes or nostrils, they act as if they can see, and they're believed to have a good sense of smell due to the snout-shaped head. Airhogs mate for life after finding a breeding partner. They breed in the fall, and females give birth to 1 or 2 hoglets in the spring, which are weaned by the end of fall. This video serves as just an introduction to the fantasy world of Monscone, and many of the icons discussed can be and will be talked about further in future videos. This video has been long in the making. Originally, Monscone's debut video was going to be just about unicorns and was planned to come out in February or March, but it just never got done. The artwork for that video wasn't fun. I assumed because it was just one creature, so I decided to make a video about a bunch of creatures instead. For those of you who have been waiting, thank you so much for your patience, and thank you all for watching. Happy 4th birthday to Monscone.